Okay, so this is my spoiler review of Dark Season 3 on Netflix. If you haven't watched Season 3 yet, stop watching this video and come back when you have. It is full of spoilers. So for me, I recently just watched Season 1 of Dark and Season 2 back to back. I binged it in 1 week. I absolutely fell in love with the show. I thought Season 1 was amazing, but Season 2 was even better, and it was just awesome how they could step up from such a good Season 1 to going to a Season 2. And what's interesting is the Season 1 cliffhanger being that they're in the future worried you a bit, but then it still pulled it off in Season 2 and didn't fall onto that. Where then Season 2 had even a little bit of a more worrisome cliffhanger with having Marta show up with bangs and bring up another world, which can be dangerous territory. In an already complicated show with different timelines, now you're adding different worlds. So I had hesitation going into this season, but I knew they pulled it off, adding a crazy cliffhanger Season 1, so why not do it again? So after watching Season 3, I have very mixed feelings about this season. I think that it didn't become a train wreck because of the added world, and they didn't go crazy with it, which was good. They kept it grounded. They only really added one other world, being Marta's world, and then later at the end they had the third thing of it being the world that was the origin world, but it didn't focus so much on a different world storyline, which was great. It was just a piece of the puzzle here. That I appreciated. However, this was the first season of Dark. Almost every other episode I really dug, and then the next one I kind of was zoning out, falling asleep a little bit. First time happened with this show, and that's disappointing in a sense because of such a high bar it's raised. And this show is always going to be compared to Lost, and for many reasons, and this season kind of adds to that. It's nowhere near as bad as Season 6 of Lost, the final season. I'm not comparing it to that in that sense. I'm saying it made some missteps that Lost also did, where they add a new little twist to the story to get to an ending here, and that was adding this other world. And my problem with that, it had the same issue that Lost had with the Flash Sideways, where if you haven't seen Lost, Flash Sideways was like showing you a world that could have been of your characters. And here, it's a different world. You're seeing the similar characters from Dark that you've grown to love and understand and attach to, but you're seeing them in a different version. So it's not technically the same character. And for me, that takes me out a little. I don't think this kind of device in storytelling in such good stories ever helps. I think it kind of hinders it. Because then when you're seeing Urlik in Martha's world, do you really care what's going on with him? I don't. I mean, it's kind of there to show you, to serve the plot, and that, oh, this is how things would still stay the same. But they gave it so much screen time that you kind of just were like, okay, like, cool. But it wasn't the same gripping feeling you had from the first 2 seasons, and that is my biggest complaint about this season. I felt less attachment to it. It felt a little more muted, if that makes sense. It kind of is just getting to its ending that it's setting up from the top of this season. It really plays like half and half. Like there's one movie going on here in this season, and the other half is directly connected to the stories you're attached to in Season 1 and 2, and that's what's really happening in Jonas's world. And I think that is where it shined. I think in particular, Episode 7, the penultimate episode, was the best. I think because it did that, it showed you it playing its strengths and connecting to everything you were invested in, where the finale went to that movie storyline I'm talking about with this other world. And then having Claudia show up and be the thing that wraps us up by last minute explaining the origin world thing. We really didn't see her discover that, which was kind of strange and felt a little easy for such a complicated show like this. And it was weird because it was committed to that idea. It thematically really worked. That's what's impressive about the two world thing, is how they made that work with Jonas and Marta, and how they come from this origin world, but this love story in it and the Adam and Eva stuff all worked for me. But in the entertainment department, this was the least entertaining because of that choice they made to add that other world. It took away from that feeling of the edge of your seat the whole season, where there's bits of it and it's not all bad, it's mostly good. This is still a great show, but to live up to Season 2, it really doesn't go there. And I think it just added its own little crutch here because it was so focused on making sure this wraps up. And what's tough is they did wrap it up in a nice bow at the end. And then you add this kind of tropey ending where you have Hannah see Jonas's jacket and they leave it kind of up for you to decide, like, oh, maybe it didn't work, their plan with the origin world, and it keeps going. Like, make up your mind. It kind of gives you two separate endings here. It almost felt like an alternate ending just thrown in there. So I wasn't crazy about that either. It didn't feel like a confident ending. And I'm getting all my quips out of the way because, again, don't misjudge that I'm not crapping on the show. This is a brilliant show. It's so well done. There's so much effort put in. I'm just getting out the anger first. And that also includes with the bangs here, right? So Marta, Katrina, and Hannah, all in this world without Jonas, have bangs. That's another goofy thing. Like, you can use other effects to make them clearly show they're a different version of them. I mean, Jesus, Hannah was already pregnant. Did she have to get bangs as well? Is that just the quota in this new world? I thought that was kind of silly. I like they added, to keep you kind of not getting lost, is a new transition where it's always been that clock ticking sound, which I love from seasons past. But they also added this like wormhole effect when you're kind of shifting worlds here. I thought the worst episode of the season, and maybe my least favorite of the whole show, was actually episode 4, titled Origin. Because I don't like this story they had where they introduced Jonas and Martha's child. And this character in 3 different ages, it looked cool, but at the end of the day, when you look back and you finish the season, you're like, what was really the point of that? It was kind of, again, a lot to just serve the plot, but nothing you really were invested in. And that's because they introduced a lot of stuff here in season 3 they kind of needed to introduce to close this up. And then maybe I thought maybe this did need one more season, because I always agree with keeping it short to the point and don't let the show die, right? Don't stretch it out. But maybe they cut it too short and too quick. I think that maybe this would have worked better into one more season, because if you set all this up in season 3, then in season 4 you can get a little more invested in this story with his son and what Claudia is introducing about the origin world, because you're shoving a lot of stuff of us to really kind of care about at the end here. So I think Dark season 3 had a lot of its magic from the past seasons, and that was kind of in every episode, like I'm saying, but it, for the first time, had episodes I really didn't enjoy, and that is attributed to having this, we'll say, flash sideways like Lost or other worlds with characters that are different versions of our characters. I also think this show in season 1 and 2 had like an amazing track record with closing montages in different episodes, especially with the music they choose. I'm always opening the Shazam app on my phone to see what song's playing. I've discovered such great music from this show. I think the only episode that pulled it off was episode 2, unfortunately, which was the song Broken Sleep by Agnes Obel. But some of the other endings with their montages, the music choices were a little questionable, kind of more poppy and contemporary, which I wasn't so crazy about and I don't think worked as well. I thought episode 7, going back to that, was out of this world because it really did get really dark, and it had that Darth Vader origin story to it with Jonas becoming Adam and showing him in the episode trying to kill himself, and then kind of coming full circle, seeing Adam's story. And I think Adam was the most interesting part of this show, especially this season. You always got kind of chills when he came on screen and trying to figure out what he was up to. It was also cool to see Adam in his mid-age and then see Hannah. I also think that having Adam and getting introduced to old Marta was really cool, and it was like a chess match they were playing against each other the whole season. But having that chess match play, again, I don't think it was clever just to have kind of the fixer of all of it being Claudia. She's always been the third wheel here, and to have the training wheel save the day, I don't know. Felt a little bit like a cop-out. Themes that I loved. I love how they really hammered in the deja vu feeling and what deja vu can kind of really be if it was something like this. I thought that was excellent, and you don't know, did I see you before? Did I see you in a different world, different time? I thought that was cool. The shadow theme they got going with the light and the dark, Adam, Eva, I thought that was all great. And you could see there was so much thought out by these writers from day one and where they were going to get to. But there just seemed stories that didn't really get the full payoff that maybe we wanted. And I think that has to go to Hannah too, and Yerlich, and just getting Katrina to see Yerlich in the hospital. I don't know, like, what does that really mean? What does that do? It's so strange because it kind of was like every storyline the first seasons was moving at a good clip and it was progressing, and then this season was like, let's keep one storyline progressing to our eventual end with Marta and Jonas because how we're ending this, but let's kind of water down everyone else's story. And that's where I think it needed a 4th season to finish everyone's stories, without it kind of just being like, oh, well, everyone gets a couple closing scenes and that's really it. It's like, wait, so what was at the end of the day Hannah's big purpose? Why was she so evil? Like, there's certain things like that I wish was just a little more explained. I like the running joke about the guy missing an eye and missing an arm in the other world and that you never know why. I thought that worked. Teasing kind of people who need answers for everything. So I'm not expecting the show to give me answers to everything. I'm just expecting the show to kind of give you satisfaction on everyone's storyline, which I think it did clearly with Marta and Jonas, but I don't know about the rest. And there was moments where Elizabeth's story shined here. She had a big moment where she killed the guy with the fire extinguisher. I thought that was awesome. Another great episode, but you kind of leave her be after that. I would have liked more of her and kind of where she contributes to the end of all this. And Magnus is still the worst character in the show. Probably the only bad character in the show. He's so hateable and he's always wrong. He doesn't get anything. And now we just see him in his emo version. The black hair and the tattoos. The casting's always incredible. I mean, I don't know how they get people to look so similar. I know some are actually related. But Marta, the old version, was just pinpoint. Even her mid-age versions were excellent. So, I mean, this is a production design team, a casting department, and a score with a composer that all deserve recognition constantly. They're probably the best in the game right now at it. Maybe just behind Trent Reznor in the score category, but still very close. So as a whole, I think this season deserves an 8.7. I still think it was great. I really enjoyed it. It's one of the better shows ever to be made. I think it would be top 5 for me, only behind shows like Breaking Bad, Leftovers. So it's not like this was a failure at all. This was a really good ending. It's hard to have a great final season. It's really the hardest thing in television, especially to have a good ending to such a complicated show, and I think it did a pretty good ending. I don't think it was bad. I don't think this was Lost's ending where it was just a horrible last season. No, this was a good season. I just think it wasn't the best out of the 3. I think you have to have a pecking order in its own right with season 1, 2, and 3, and I would go 2, 1, and then 3 on the bottom there. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I'd give this show, all its seasons together, a 9.4, which I think is really high and deserving of it. I enjoyed so much of the show. I'm going to miss it because it was such a hit and it was the first German Netflix show. They might do some kind of spin-off here, and I think they could with maybe one character. And maybe it isn't even about time travel. It's just some kind of story they can kind of delve into with maybe some other type of sci-fi twist to it. We'll see, because I think this team is so good. Maybe they do a new story, but I'd love to see more from this creative team. It's so well done and still somehow so underrated. I think the best rating and praise it finally got in recognition it deserved was Rotten Tomatoes had a poll with like the best Netflix show and Dark won. So that's huge. So people love it. It's just more people need to watch it. Like, come on, people. It's subtitles. It's okay. You can read it. Look, I can't stand the English dub version. I think voice acting like that is awful and not watchable that way. You miss a lot of the emotions and things don't line up. So just put German audio on here and English subtitles. It's great. And your reading composition will go up a little bit, so why not? Let me know what you thought of this down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, try to respond to as many as I can. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews. I do a bunch of TV shows, movies, and celebrity interviews. And please follow me at Steve Varley1 on Twitter and Instagram for more of me. And I'll see you next time.